Good morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on this 3rd day of October 2022. My name is Sam Gituko and I'm just in time for the discussion that I want to speak to one former and one current cabinet secretary who served under President Uhuru Kenyatta. Talk to us about their experience. Of course, they came to office at a time that the constitution had changed, requiring that people in cabinet should not be serving in other political capacities or political offices. I'm talking about Professor Margaret Kobia, the current Public Service Gender Affairs Cabinet Secretary. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you.
And I'm also speaking about Cicely Kariuki, former Cabinet Secretary. She served in the Public Service, the docket that now CS Kobia now holds, but also served at the Health docket, and finally Water docket, and later left to go seek political office. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
And it's been a couple of months, you haven't spoken. Maybe let me just start from there before you look at the headlines of the papers, how your experience has been since leaving office. Of course, you had, at some point, you were looking for a political seat. That didn't go through. What has been your experience?
Well, every day and every experience is one that teaches you what life is about. So I've been on these, lengthy space, picking different lessons, different experiences, meeting different people, and just helping myself to come and ask myself, so what do I exist for? Who am I? Which is my best fit? So that is what has occupied me since 9th of February, when I resigned as a cabinet minister for water, sanitation and irrigation. A very, very rich experience, I must say, because what has happened, I've ended up now doing a 360, from a junior officer to a CEO to a PS to cabinet minister in several dockets, and out to very active politics. And now just taking it easy and setting myself into different new spaces.
So
yes.
What happens to your political ambitions? They take a break or they have come to an end?
Once a politician, always a politician, actually. Politics never comes to an end. And, that is why you evolve over time. So when I spoke to Kenyans on the 28th of April, and I said I have suspended my gubernatorial race for Nyandarua, suspending is a key word here, because you never quite get out of it. And, every day we live in politics in one way or another. Even when cabinet secretaries are told they shouldn't actively engage in politics, it really depends on how you define politics, because you are a politician, Sam, yourself. The analysis that you do, the engagements that you have with politicians, and you, just that you communicate politics around it, you also have to take a very keen interest in what politics is about. So in a way, we are all politicians. Okay,
yes. Very interesting. I'll be coming back to you for more. But Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kobia, coming from the Public Service where you chaired, is it a board? I think it's a board, yes.
A commission.
Oh, sorry.
A commission.
A commission, yes.
Yes.
And then now got into cabinet. Then towards the end, you also saw you're quite a bit active. So you joining political campaigns. What was that experience for you? How different is it from what you had been used to?
Thank you very much, Sam. My journey in public service has been very interesting, but very enriching. You remember, I was the first Director General Kenya School of Government. Then I moved to Public Service Commission, which deals with the human resource function of the entire public service, and now in the space of Cabinet Secretary. Of course, I thank His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta for appointing me in this position of a Cabinet Secretary, which I took as a position to serve and also kind of promote the well-being of Kenyans. That is a space that is for very few people, but at the same time, I'm always reminded that it is a position that we have been trusted by Kenyans to support His Excellency the President deliver on his plan, and I think he led us very, very well, and I'm proud of the cabinet that we are just concluding, which is just on transition and assisting His Excellency President Ruto to kind of get his new cabinet, and then proceed within delivering his plan. So I also wish to congratulate His Excellency the President William Ruto for the appointment he has just made of the Cabinet Secretary, and we hope they'll build on the achievement of the Uhuru Kenyatta Cabinet, which leaves a very clear infrastructure system. They also lead to a very solid public service, and they can just build on it. So what I'm just saying that much as we were quite in competitive election period the whole of last year, and each of the two competitors for political election to lead this country, it's also everybody is trying to find what can you achieve in line with what Kenyans want in terms of improving their quality of life. So I think now politics is behind us, and you can see when the current Uhuru Kenyatta cabinet is working very closely with the Deputy President and is also Executive the President, just to make sure government services continue, because it should actually be seamless. And that's why we are saying we are having cabinet meetings to make decisions that are implemented in the ministries, and the work continues. Hospitals did not close, schools will not close. So it is very important that Kenyans understand government are perpetual. And there's no vacancy at any time. President ends when he hands on the docket or the government to the sworn president. The same with the cabinet secretaries. The time that appointees of His Excellency President Ruto are sworn in, I'll hand over the docket with the clear, detailed handing over notes, so that they can be able to know this is where Uhuru Kenyatta cabinet had reached, and this is what they need to take forward. So it's quite interesting to find yourself.
But what was that? What was your experience being on the trail? I saw you. Allow me to say this, on car rooftops at some meetings. How different was it for you? This is not something you've done for many years.
Let me say, personally, I have not been really involved in the campaign really for a political position for myself. And let me also say that this myth of saying there are those who are politicians is true, because they are seen campaigning and asking for votes. And there are the technocrats who come to the space of political space just because of the nature of the job and appointment that they have. So my experience is that for example, if a politician like Raila Odinga is coming to Meru, who was looking for votes through Asmio, or even President Ruto is coming to Meru, and I'm a senior public servant, I can be on the ground, but not necessarily campaign for a particular, because being a public servant, I do not necessarily need to campaign to a particular candidate, but I can be able to point that we want a government that will be able to deliver on the promises of Kenyans. So that experience...
So was that a personal choice to join the trail, or it was maybe you were persuaded in cabinet to do that?
I'm not persuaded in cabinet to go out there and campaign, but for sure, if you are loyal to your president, and you would go out not necessarily to campaign, but to sell the programs, the policies of the president. So there's a very thin line to when you are talking about development and when you are talking politics. And in any case, the Harvard Business School or Kennedy School of Government, it says 90% of the ministers' work is political. So, and what is politics? Politics is just the process of how decisions are made regarding power and authority, and how they're implemented on the ground and for whose interest. So all of us were politicians, but may differ our approaches to that politics. So I think it's important for us to not to lay so much emphasis on a politician and so much emphasis on a professional. In fact, you need both. If you are really going to serve in the space we are as a cabinet secretary, you need to be political and working knowledge of politics, because we are trying to satisfy the interest of each party or the stakeholders. And also, if you are professional, you also need part of the politics. And if you are political, you also need some technical working know-how to be able to deliver on your docket.
All right. And of course, I will spend some time to understand the depth of that. But for you, as you exit from the politics, was there, Cicely, So you went on the ground, you were on Jubilee, on the side of Azimio, but when you look at the totality of the outcome of that election, majority of the voters in your county and the Mount Kenya region would appear to have sided with Kenya Kwanza, or UDA if you like. Close to 80% of the presidential vote was going to William Ruto. How do you reconcile that? Yet you led such a spirited campaign in the region. What happened?
Thank you, Sam. A very good observation. Just speaking from where CS Kobia has stopped, I think there is nothing really the matter or the problem when you take a political position, even when you're in cabinet. The Integrity Act does exempt cabinet secretaries and CECs to actually participate. They say the public servants are not allowed to engage in what is viewed to be partisan politics, but save for the cabinet secretary and the CEC. And so I think it's well in order for you as a leader, having risen through the ranks, to be able to influence and impart knowledge to the people who are looking or yearning at being given direction because of the exposure that we have been privileged to have. In 2017, I mean, it was known during the Uhuru second cycle, we were engaged. And let me say, because we are speaking so that the nominees, the CSs who are going to be coming after us, also do benefit. In cabinet is not a place where your boss, the president, tells you, wake up and move as follows. It is for you to be discerning. It is for you to unpack his expectations of you, because he's given you the latitude to make decisions for as long as it is in advancing the welfare of the citizens and the voters who gave him the votes. Then it is for you to then interpret that. And your mandate, therefore, can be expanded, it can be shrunk, depending on the circumstances. So I don't think that I believe in demonizing cabinet secretaries who actually go out to campaign actively for a certain agenda. Because you're campaigning for an agenda which is articulated in a manifesto of the president or the leader at one point in time. But having said that, let me come back to the issue you raise. Yes, first of all, I want to appreciate the citizens of Nyandarua, because the 22% that they moved in a direction which was not necessarily the most popular at that point in time when you went to the ground, says to me that we had still choices to make so that we are not herding people in one direction. And we ended up with 2 members of parliament out of 5 in Nyandarua. We ended up with 3 MCAs on the Jubilee ticket and a few independents, and the bulk of them to the UDA team. Some you will recall that the Azimio movement came in quite late in the day. The UDA movement was already quite aggressive on the ground, having been on it for the last 4 years or so. So, you know, human beings respond to presence and what it is you urge them, and they had moved in a certain direction. But having said that, I want to join Kenyans and other leaders in saying that was then. We were pursuing preferences on account of the personalities and the manifestos and the ideas that they were selling. We are past that, and Kenyans just came out very mature that no amount of persuading them would move them from what they viewed to be their future leadership. And therefore, it is time now for this future leadership to be supported by all and sundry, and to be able to deliver to Kenyans the many promises that they have made to Kenyans. It is also a time for the opposition to pull up its socks and be able to play the role for which they think they are going to add value to the very Kenyans. But overall, said and done, there is work to be done. I am glad that now there are individuals to the names of cabinet secretaries to be able to work with President Ruto and his deputy Gachagua, and some of us who have been in the professional spaces. Any value that we can be able to add in the journey of service to Kenyans, we are glad and will be happy to do it. We are playing it. Personally, I'm playing it in my private space, and we'll continue because this country belongs to all of us. I like it when the president goes to areas which were hitherto viewed to be not very supportive of him, And he speaks to Kenyans like all Kenyans, the leaders, whether you voted for him, you didn't vote for him. He's happy and willing to embrace everyone else so that this country can move forward. A mature country in terms of democracy, a country where we have seen unprecedented peace, even when we thought the divisions were a bit too dire.
There's something you said that you're making a contribution in a private space. What does that mean?
What that means is that having been privileged and appreciating the former president, it is not usual or normal for you to serve in administration for 10 years uninterrupted. I have been privileged to serve as a principal secretary and in cabinet of the Uhuru administration, and therefore have been exposed to knowledge and skills that most Kenyans may not have been exposed to while I was heading the teams in these very vital dockets. So I'm in the process of converting the knowledge that I've acquired and my experiences into leadership training and capacity building by way of being a private consultant. And I'm doing this with a couple of other consultants who've been there ahead of me to be able to induct the new leadership, to be able to support them in terms of working with the other government organs that are also working to redirect the new leadership in a certain direction, so that then they do not perhaps have to struggle too much the way we have done, because the cabinet space is a space where it is expected or people assume that you know everything. I want to be able to come and say, a cabinet secretary, just because you're nominated or appointed at some point, you do not know everything. You are vulnerable to the extent that you are moving to areas where you need to harness the commitment of the people, the technical people that you find in the ministries in a certain way to be able to take off, perhaps, without going through some of the struggles we had to go through. The promises are many.
Okay.
The promises are
very interesting, including surviving the struggles. We'll try to get more details about what you've made. But first, let's listen to what the cabinet nominees, because President William Ruto has nominated 22 men and women to be in cabinet, different capacities. Listen to some of them on how they received the news.
I'm just elated that this is a first. We have not had a woman cabinet secretary in the whole of my community, I can say in the world. So the president has made this possible.
Oh, I thank him, thanked my president like words are not enough. Yes, I'm happy. Yes, being the first woman from the Mijikenda nation, to be in a cabinet, it's indeed a great honor to us.
I was actually in my farm when the news came to me, and I was not aware of this appointment. Actually, it was a surprise, and I dare say that I've seen bottom up in a new spectrum, because I didn't expect this to happen.
All right. There is Aisha, Jumwa, Soipantuya, and Malonza, all of whom have been proposed for different capacities in cabinet. We'll be listening to some more, including Attorney General nominee, that is Speaker Justin Muturi, talking about their experience. But Professor Kobia, in 2017? No, actually 2018. This was you. Well, not in exact same terms, but this was you, having received the news from President Kenyatta. How did you transition from that? Is this something that you expected, having served under the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta at the Public Service Commission?
Thank you very much, Sam. My appointment as a cabinet secretary in 2018, around January, is not something that I expected, but hadn't been visible in the public service because I was the chairperson, Public Service Commission. So through the interaction, through performing my role as a chairperson of the Public Service Commission, I think when the president was kind of looking and analyzing who could make part of the cabinet, it was a privilege and an honor that I was appointed. I was, of course, elated. I was extremely happy, but at the same time, I felt the weight that comes with being appointed in the cabinet. Cabinet is the highest governing body in any government, and actually it is the determinant of how government is going to succeed or fail. So when you look at the composition of the people who have been appointed, I feel that His Excellency William Ruto has actually looked at the track record of all these people who have been appointed, because as I look at them, they are not like new in the public service or in the profession that they are in. Therefore, the excitement they are exhibiting now, I am sure can connect. But let me add also that it's not so much about how happy they are feeling now. What they will feel the burden of what are they bringing to the cabinet table, so that they can be able to support the policies, programs of His Excellency the President with his grand plan of really uplifting the economy, reforms in agriculture, reforms in education, in health. Therefore, they should be reflecting to what extent are they going to add to the contribution of His Excellency, because that's what he's looking at the Deputy President. So I'm sure, looking at them, I can see he got people who are competent in their technical area. There are people who have been high flyers and performing. They have track record. They have been leaders in the space where they have been. And also, definitely, when you look at Kenyans, when you look at where is the integrity of the whole cabinet, because the way Kenyans perceive that cabinet is the way they are going to hold them accountable for them to deliver on the promises of the government of William Ruto. So the way I'm seeing it is that let them not, although they are happy because they have been appointed, it's a heavy responsibility, but let them not live in that space of saying, I am the first woman to be appointed, so what? So it is important to feel, yes, I am the first woman appointed in my region, in my community. What will my community, what will Kenyans, because they have been appointed to serve all Kenyans, those who elected His Excellency William Ruto and his Deputy Gachagua, and those who did not vote for him. But having been chosen to be in the team of the cabinet, they should be able to ask, what can they, now that they are cabinet minister, when they live like we are living now, what legacy will they leave together with the president who they are supporting?
Prof, is it always, what is the word? Pleasant surprise. Is it always so? Or there are conversations that people have held with you?
I think many times it's a pleasant surprise, because the position of a cabinet secretary, about 22 people, there are very many other Kenyans who are qualified actually to be nominated for that position. There are very many. So it's a privilege. So even if many people, you can see, there are very many people, even the media was speculating, these are likely to be in the cabinet. But you find they are not. So finally, even if you are hoping to be appointed, when it happens, it's a pleasant surprise. And then, of course, you pick it from there now. It downs on you. What are you expected to do? And I think that's where we are here today, so that we can share our experiences for Kenyans to understand what is the role of cabinet secretary, how can they hold, what do they expect from them, how can they hold them accountable? I think that is very, very important.
What I'm looking for is that, is there any prior conversation you'd have held with the president or the people around him before being named, or it's totally a surprise, like, wow?
From my experience, it's not completely, totally from nowhere that you appointed a cabinet secretary. You must have played a visible role in maybe forming that government, in terms of, did you campaign supporting the president, and you are visible. There's also the feeling of the region where you come, because the cabinet must have a regional balance. In my experience, also the people where you come from, the people must be saying, yes, the person, although he's competent, he says a person we can work with. So it's not totally like the president can appoint X with no previous conversation with in my view, all the people who are appointed by His Excellency the President, may it be Uhuru, Kibaki, or now Dr. Ruto, they know these people. They might even have a conversation. They might not tell them, I'll give you a cabinet secretary, but they have been very active in supporting them and get the position of the president. So, and definitely a week before or so, he may have maybe sounded you, and so for you will you be willing to, should you And he can ask 50 and then come up with the 22. That's why it's always a surprise. But in my view, I think it could not be totally that you have no idea. He might have asked you a day before or a week before, how do you, kind of an interview, one-to-one engagement for the president to get a very clear understanding that you are the right person and you are going to accept, and you are going to be accepted by your community. Remember, you are appointed also so that that community have either given him votes or they also support his journey.
You know, that's very interesting. You're speaking in third person singular, yet you're one of those that were appointed to that position. Let's listen to Attorney General nominee Justin Muturi and one more person.
I'm excited because it is, for me, it's a dream come true. Having started from the judiciary, going into parliament as a member of parliament, and then as speaker, I feel it's quite an opportunity for me to give service now in a different arm of government.
I have to go through the process of vetting and eventually resign from Senate because I'm hopeful. I have faith that I'll go through the vetting process successfully and get appointed to serve Kenyans in that bigger office.
All right, that is Justin Muturi and Swepa Ntuya also. Waziri, Cicely, allow me to just call you that. Once I was you, always a Waziri. But for you, I spoke to you extensively sometime towards the end of last year about your experience and your journey. But if you're to walk back and put yourself in the position these nominees are at, what exactly is happening to them right now, knowing that there's such a journey ahead of them, including what Waziri Kobia here says about the burden ahead of them?
Thank you, Sam. I really would encourage these 22 nominees to be extremely excited. I want them to leave the moment and be happy at what is unfolding around their spaces. 22 people out of 50 million Kenyans is nothing mean. In addition to what C.S. Kobia says, the question of loyalty becomes very important. Loyalty is a very important thing, and I don't think we want to be shy about President Ruto looking at the people who he would, in addition to competence, skills, being visible, would also be rated as being highly loyal. Having said that, and being excited for the moment, I want to believe that there's some space as a leader that you do not encourage yourself to be seen to fail or not to make it. So I want to believe these nominees are busy preparing themselves for the vetting processes which are ahead. And by so doing is consulting, so that the dockets to which they have been nominated, they almost appear to be subject experts. Recall most of them have not been in some of these spaces. And this is the beauty of the cabinet space, because then it gives you flexibility, and being a leader that you are able to be versatile and you are able to move across ministries. That is why we have managed to move in between technical, between social, between very, very demanding and engaging ministries, because then it is expected as a leader, it will be your business to make the teams that are working with you deliver with you. But they also become your advisors in a way. So I want to believe they are preparing, because when you go before cabinet, the committees, or, the people, the persons or the other leaders, political leaders who will be vetting you, you want to come out, being smart and looking good for the job and ready for the job and having an idea what that job is going to entail. So excited, yes, a good space. Getting ready and preparing so that you actually become out as the expert who has been given this opportunity, so you also do not let down the nominating authority. And so they would be preparing. But having said that, those are the immediate, very short-term aspects of this job. The real job, the taste, is in the pudding. And the taste of the cake is in the pudding. And it is for them then to begin to ask the question as they move in, what part of this legacy for President Ruto and his government do I want to be remembered for? If my opportunity is for 5 years, what is it that I want to have impacted? If it is for 1 year, God forbid, or 2 years, what do I want to be remembered for? What are the innovations am I going to apply in the space where I'm being taken? What kind of working processes and systems am I going to, tweak? Or am I just going to jump in? And I can tell you, it's not always that you move into a place even when there has been a minister ahead of you and you want to have status quo. It's never like that, because then if it's a status quo space, you might as well have allowed the other person to continue. So when you come in, there's a lot of expectation. You got to come in with your own genius as a leader. You got to come in with new knowledge. You have to come in and inject further if you give more momentum to the ongoings in a particular department or ministry where you've been called to. And this is where, again, the question of trust becomes very important. Remember, the president and the deputy would be expecting you to point them in the direction of solutions to be able to deliver on the commitments they have made, as opposed to you being a burden, that it is for them running and telling you, why did you not do that? Why did you miss that? Where were you? It is expected they will be running ahead of these two principles to be able to bring solutions and to be able to serve and give the commitment, give the promises to Kenyans that the president has made during the campaign trail. So, it will be hard work ahead. And therefore, that's why I'm encouraging, let's be excited at this point in time, but also take time to consult as much as you can.
Okay.
There is a resource of people who have been there ahead of you. There is a resource of people who are still in the ministries, very competent officers across the public service. There is also people in the private sector who would give you different perspectives in the space that you are going to occupy. I think it's time for you to research real smart and to be able to say, then what does this mean for me when I take off and get going?
And we'll continue that conversation because it's pretty interesting, especially on what the job entails. Questions of do you implement the decisions of your principal, or do you bring your ideas to the table, and how exactly do you do that? Is it about instructions? Is it about initiative? We'll talk about that after the break. Stay tuned.